Okay, some new season 4 information was just released for the Rent a Girlfriend anime, and today we're going to talk about it real quick. I was in the middle of editing my Chapter 360 video, but this came up and I was too distracted, so I'm like, okay, let's just talk about this. Without further ado, I'm Faye to talk about Rent a Girlfriend stuff, and let's get into this. Let's mosey. So first off, this was shown on Twitter just the other day, last night, literally at 1 a.m. for us, but for them it was probably like, you know, in the middle of the day or something like that. So this is the new preview image. And as you can see, it's definitely dealing with like the trip to paradise. This was how Reiji first showed it as well. If we go to Reiji's Twitter when season 4 was first announced, this is the image he released. This was on the 7th anniversary. So there was an interesting thing going on here where he's pretty much kind of nodding back to the very beginning of the series in this announcement. So us seeing the characters essentially going on a trip makes a lot of sense for this. Now, what's interesting about this new announcement that just came out right now? Well, one, my biggest hopes and dreams came true. It's a 2-core season. Not 1 core, 2 core. For people who don't know what that means, it essentially means that instead of 12 episodes, you're getting 24 episodes, except it's split. So it's like you're gonna have 12 episodes air at one point. In this case, the first part, season 4, the first part is gonna air in July. Unfortunately though, we don't know when the second part was going to air, but it's ultimately a good thing because I said this before. So like a while back, I was making a video for volume 36, never got finished, but there was a portion in it where I talked about the 7th anniversary, what happened, what got announced. Here, I'll just play the clip. Look, we're gonna talk more about this in a completely separate video when I get more information, because currently I kind of don't really have much. It was just a big announcement. There was a trailer for it, which was really cute, by the way, but it kind of spoils the ending. So maybe don't watch the whole thing or don't watch a good chunk of it. Like, it doesn't spoil the major overarching plot, but it spoils the ending of the plot. And for anyone who's read the Hawaiians or Paradise arc, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So maybe don't watch the trailer all the way through if you still haven't caught up, but I'm gonna take a wild guess and say you probably are, considering discussion in this video. P.S. Cute note, the season 4 announcement was even a nod to the first anniversary of the series, and how Kizu and Kazuya were standing, how they're holding in their hands, their face mannerisms, where he says, thanks to your support, we have decided to produce a sequel to the Kanokari anime. And interestingly, the date was announced, it was just in the trailer. Yeah, it's actually going to be in 2025, but it didn't specify when in 2025. With that said, 2 cores or bust. We need 2 fucking cores, man. Make it 24 episodes. Don't do another 12 episode bullshit. This shit is long. This arc is long, complicated, and has a lot going on. You cannot fit this in 12 episodes. I beg of thee. Well, I'm glad I finally got an excuse to use that clip. And as you can tell from my reaction there, pretty much I was adamant that they needed 2 cores. Season 3 is a great example of what happens when you cram 60 plus chapters into like 12 episodes. It's too much. It's not gonna work, and I think a lot of the season was very much hurt. Now, to be fair, I don't want to blame the staff or anything like that. One thing I could tell is that the staff who made pretty much the entire anime, I'd argue, like most of them retained most of their roles. Some were swapped here and there. In season 3, Kana Hariyama and the director Kozumi Koga, I believe, they ended up not being nearly as involved. In particular, the director left his role and he went to do a different anime, and Kana Hariyama was actually very busy. And the reason I believe all of this happened was because of the structure of season 2 and how things were playing out. Essentially, season 2 was hit really bad with COVID, and the structure they had established for season 1 simply would not work. And season 3 essentially is kind of when it really kind of falls apart. Kana really couldn't be nearly as involved because she's a very meticulous kind of chief animation director where she corrects everything. She's actively involved in everything. Don't get me wrong, I know she was involved. I know she was involved in a lot of stuff and she did a lot of corrections, but you can tell the animation varied here and there. So to build off of what I was just talking about, this had me somewhat worried for season 4 because I knew it was gonna happen. It just felt like they were gonna do it. It didn't feel like it's the right spot to end it. This is a moneymaker for them, and it really just kind of needs some solid animation, some solid production for it to really make that money that they want. And it sells despite how people love to talk about this series. So don't let people like tell you otherwise, okay? So I was worried that they would end up doing 12 episodes again for another 60 or so chapters, which is just No, and especially considering this is a much slower arc. This is an arc where it's very methodical, very slow, and it's the kind of arc that really wants you to pay attention. And so you can't go at a breakneck pace. And it makes me so happy that they're not. And I think 24 episodes is plenty to cover the material and actually be somewhat decent. Now, another great thing about this is that we don't know when the other half is going to be coming out. However, it coming out in July actually feels a little bit more feasible considering everything that they're adapting and the fact that they can somewhat take their time now. So now let's just get into some of the other details that we can talk about. Before I go analyzing the cover art that they made for this, I will analyze this. There's stuff to analyze about this. We actually want to see the staff and the cast. So this is all Japanese. I can do like a quick translation into English, and I can tell you who pretty much everyone is, whether they're retaining their role or they're not. Kazumi Koga was the director of the anime for season 1 and season 2, but he was not the director of season 3. So this is him retaining his role. He's coming back, he's reprising his role. Kana Hirayama, the character designer of the anime, it says Horona, it's just a bad translation. Again, machine translations, this is why we don't listen to these things. Kana Hirayama, the character designer for the anime, is also the chief animation director of the anime. Now, she's not listed as that here, we're not seeing that here, and that doesn't tell us much, but at the very least, she clearly did this art piece. This is her art style, there's no denying it. This Kana Hirayama drew this. So at the very least, she's directly involved in some way. Now, granted, she did also draw the art piece for season 3, right? So you could base it off of that. But for some reason, I'm personally getting the vibe that there's a little bit more preparation in terms of this season, in particular because of how secretive they were with the announcement, how they kind of like kept it kind of hidden for a while. They didn't say anything. Like, for example, when season 2 came out, I think they announced season 3 almost the moment it ended. Season 4 was not announced as soon as season 3 ended. In fact, there was quite a bit of silence for a while, and then at the 7th anniversary, that's when it was announced, alongside Reiji's second anime, which is the Shiyunji family, which is done by completely different people, right? So yeah, we don't have a lot of information to go off of, but some of the things we have been given are interesting. A day later, just wanted to add 2 other things. Reiji drew an illustration showing that season 4 will be split into 2 cores, and yeah, it's pretty cute. I don't really have too much to comment on this. It's pretty straightforward. That's literally what it says here. And yeah, it's just Chizuru in the swimsuit she's going to wear, and it's just very adorable. I love this art style, honestly, because it almost feels like Reiji has like 3 art styles. He has like the volume cover art style, this art style whenever he makes like some sort of announcement, and the manga art style. So it's kind of cool. We don't usually get these very often. The other thing I wanted to comment on, which is pretty small, is that Kana Hirayama, the character designer and chief animation director of the anime, not sure if she's chief animation director yet for season 4. She said, I drew the visual that was announced, which yeah, she drew this. I pretty much said it in the video, but you know, this is just straight confirmation from her, and she reposted it, I guess. So yeah, just wanted to let you guys know. And finally, just for the fans here, volume 39 of Rent a Girlfriend is currently #1 on Amazon. Currently in first place as the most sold manga on Amazon. We stay winning. Now, if we go to Anime News Network real quick, you'll see pretty much they listed almost everyone the same way. Like, I believe it's the same people who are listed here. So if we look here, we'll see, like, for example, the music is done by Hayadon, who I have a really weird relationship with, to be honest. There's some tracks of the soundtrack of the anime that I do like. For example, Kazuya's theme, I like it because it's somewhat melancholic. It's surprisingly fitting for Kazuya. And there's of course other songs that I do like, where season 1 pretty much has some of the best composition in the anime, in my opinion, where there's a lot of variety and there's a lot of play with what's the word I'm looking for? It's when they play with the music and they create a leitmotif. That's what it was, right? There's a lot of play with like certain leitmotifs and certain elements like that. I felt like season 2 and season 3 really kind of didn't have that. The soundtrack didn't naturally evolve. I definitely felt the soundtrack as a whole for every season really kind of lacks some of those songs that aren't like big and bombastic, but rather songs that are small and in the moment. And even the ones that did have that, they felt very generic. They didn't feel like they had much depth to them, or they were trying to convey something about the characters. And I get it, some of it is a directional thing. The directors have to place it a certain place, like the sound directors have to place it in a certain place. They're the ones who pick where songs go and stuff like that. And there's times where it's just like, what were you thinking? In particular, I vividly remember a scene in season 2 where Kazuya and Chizuru are having like an argument in the hospital. And it's like a very deep, complicated, morally gray argument where it's like there's no right answer. Both characters are correct, and what they have to grapple with is very complicated. And they play this rock song.
決まってるだろ。言うんだよ、水原のばあちゃんに。俺たちの関係が嘘だって。
And I'm just, what are you thinking? What in the hell are you? That is not where you play that song, right? Like if you want a confrontation song, make something a little different. Don't include that there. So I am somewhat critical, but again, despite all my criticisms of the anime, I do think it's a great way to start the series, even if it has a problem of misrepresenting some of the cast, some of the characters within the narrative. And this isn't completely uncommon within the anime spectrum, where a lot of times when you get an anime adaptation, people base their interpretations on the anime, and the anime has a problem of sometimes misrepresenting the character because it is not the source material, at least the ones that are adapting a source material, right? So anyway, let's get back to topic. I know I drifted a little bit off topic here. The person who did series composition is the same person as season 1 of the anime, same person. And season 3. Season 3 is probably the most radical, but yes, it's the same person who did all 3 seasons for the series composition. Kana Hariyama, character designer, is no difference. Music, we already discussed it. The sound director. So it sounds like the sound director is the same person who was there for season 2, most likely season 1. Shunya Un right here, he was actually the director of season 3. And I'm really curious if he's back at all for season 4, because he was involved in a lot of the direction for like the anime in general. So interesting, the person who did the color design for season 3 is not the same person who is doing the color design for season 4. They have a new person doing color design for season 4. Their name is Akame Nagao? Interesting. Sorry, I put it like in a separate screen, so I'm double checking. That way I know what I'm looking for. So for season 1 through 3, it's been Fumiko Ishiguro. Yeah, and that's pretty much the things they've done for the series, except for season 4, it's someone completely different. And I'm really curious if they've been involved with the series before. Akame Nagao. So we might be getting a possibly new color direction for season 4, because holy sweet baby Jesus. Wow. Okay, so the person who's doing color design for season 4 is very experienced, as you can tell. They have done a lot. They've worked on Case Closed, Bongo Stray Dogs, they've worked on Bakon, Bartender, Akame Got Kill, Animal Crossing movie, that's funny. Detective Conan, The Devil is a Part-Timer. They worked on Dr. Stone, Fruits Basket season 1. Oh my, Full Metal Alchemist. Okay, the art director has been there this entire time. They have never changed, always the same person. We have the director of photography, Shintaro Sakaya. They've been there for all seasons. Editing, feel like, oh wow, very experienced. But I would not be surprised if, yep, there it is. They've been there in every season, right? Not even remotely shocked. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the staff. We pretty much went through the entire staff. You'll notice like there isn't very much different except for the color design. So that's gonna be interesting. Like, I wonder if that'll make a huge difference. I really want, I think one of my biggest things that I want is for season 4 to have a more consistent animation and to actually have some level of depth. In particular, I think one thing I kind of like about season 4, and I guess we'll get into it right now, is actually the art they made for it. This art, well, yeah, to some degree it doesn't make complete sense, because of course it doesn't. Like every art they've made for every season has had the female cast front and center. Kazuya does not exist. He doesn't matter. You just get into the manga, you'll find him there. And while Reishi does follow somewhat of a similar structure, where yes, he does oftentimes put the female cast front and center because they, to a lot of people, are the immediate attraction. One thing that I love that Reishi does do, and he actually acknowledged this, I asked him one time, like, he used to do these streams, he doesn't do them anymore. I asked him one time, like, hey, I noticed you never put Kazuya on any of the covers for the manga. It's always like one of the female characters. He said, well, you see, I actually have a dedicated spot for Kazuya, and it's literally always on the back of the cover. The back of the cover, no matter what cover it is, will always be a dedicated art for Kazuya that's like just as high quality as the front cover. And I think that's really, really cool. Like, I love that, like, Reishi, at the very least, consistently acknowledges Kazuya's character, whereas the anime seemingly never does. The anime just doesn't. Like, Kazuya does not exist in the promotional material of the anime, except for the anime itself. He's in there. And even then, I do have problems with how Kazuya is represented within the anime, as I feel like more often than not, like, while Kazuya is okay, like, you get the initial idea of his character, you do understand, and this is why I say it's a good introduction to the series. I do think the anime does have a consistent problem, and I'll bring it up every fucking time I talk about the anime, where I feel like they trim out too much of Kazuya's character, they cut out too much of Kazuya's character, where it feels like he's not the focus, which to me personally feels very counterintuitive to Kazuya's character arc within the narrative, because Kazuya's big character arc within the story, for much of it, centers itself around agency, and this is something that persists even to this current point within the narrative. Like, consistently, his element of agency over himself, over the story, how it evolves, how it continues, is very core to Kazuya's character. So when they trim out Kazuya's character consistently, I feel like it's a huge detriment to the storytelling, especially possibly within this season. So how this season is going to be handled is going to be really interesting for me, because it deals heavily with that theme. It deals heavily with that element of agency, loss of agency. There's a lot of themes at play in this arc, and it's a very divisive arc. Let's get that out of the way. I know it's a very divisive arc, but personally for me, it is one of the best written arcs in the series, period. And I get that. Like, a lot of people are like, oh, the movie arc's the best. I like that more than the movie arc, I'm gonna be real. Personally, for me, it's a well-written arc, but it's divisive because it is an arc that delves into the morally gray and the morally complex, and it essentially deconstructs the idea of how you've understood the characters up until this point. It starts showing them in their full colors, including the bad. And I think too many people just fixate on the bad, and they essentially basically inherent half-truths, where a lot of YouTubers, what they'll do is they'll take a truth, like something that was presented, like this thing actually happened, and they'll warp it into something else, and you'll get essentially a different experience by interacting with them. And a lot of people have this mentality of, I'll absorb the series via mitosis, so they'll just go to some YouTuber, some TikTok, some bullshit like that, and that's how they'll understand the series. They won't actually interact with it. And even if they read it, they'll only read surface level. They'll never really dig into it. And this is kind of that arc where it wants you to reread it. This is an arc that really wants you to reread it and has a lot of detail. So the fact that it's 2 cours makes me very excited, because it means they can retain a lot of that detail. There's a lot of build up to the arc, and the arc itself is long and complicated. So that's something that I'm personally excited about, that the arc is getting the time to breathe and has all the complexity that's layered within it, right? So that's one part. Let's get that out of the way. So it's like, I get it. I didn't want to delve too deep into the arc. This is just my like non-spoiler analysis of it that I think is very relevant, and it's a very good arc that is a big microcosm of the characters. And no, let's get it out of the way. Chapter 218 does not ruin the series. It does not ruin the story. It does not ruin Kazuya's character. In fact, in my opinion, it's actually a really good fucking chapter. Anyways, let's get into some of the analysis I wanted to make for the cover right here. There are some cute, interesting details. For one, if you look at Minnie's clothing, before like I get into the reference that's clearly on her shirt, Minnie's clothing interestingly reminds me a lot of how she was first introduced, which is like the cop cosplay that she was wearing with the cat ears. You'll notice this actually has a very similar color palette to that. The skirt is the same as the cop skirt. The top is blue, just like the cop top. And of course she has cat ears, but it's a beanie. So essentially this is a reverse of Minnie's usual outfit. It's a really cool design from Kana Hirayama, and how it like seemingly has Minnie's outfit, but it's a deconstruction of it where it's chill Minnie, right? It's chill Minnie, and in some ways it kind of reminds me of Kazuya. And if they do adapt the arc after this arc, we'll get to see a lot more of Minnie dressed like this. So this is a cool nod, right? Like, this is a cool idea. So okay, what's the reference? What's the reference on Minnie's shirt? 8504 is the room number of 2 certain characters. Yeah. To add on to this, apparently 8504 in Japanese is pronounced hakushi, which means box support in Japanese. In otaku culture, box support means supporting all the members of the group. And this user told me here that it says it might be a reference to that. This actually makes a lot of sense when you consider the fact that Minnie really loves anime culture. So that being on Minnie's shirt makes a lot of sense. I won't spoil the arc, but for those who have followed the arc and who know what happens in it, the connection to the room and all that stuff, this actually makes a lot of sense. So I would not put it past Kana Hirayama to place it there, especially on Minnie's Mami's hoodie in particular. And once again, shout out to this user. Thanks for this comment. That's really cool. I did not know that. Very cute nod from Kanohariyama right there. One thing they tend to do with Minnie's shirt, especially in the anime, is that every shirt Minnie tends to wear tends to be some sort of reference to something. And like what the anime will do, instead of just putting the same thing, is that they'll like reverse the reference in some way, or they'll change the reference in some way. So for instance, one of the first shirts we see Minnie in the manga, she's wearing a Code Geass shirt. It's straight up a Code Geass shirt. It just says Geass on the top that she's wearing. In the anime, they changed the shirts to 11. Now you would think, what the hell? Why did you change it like that? That 11 seemingly has nothing to do with it, except it's a deep cut reference, because if you know the shirt says Geass and you've seen the anime Code Geass, you would know that in Japan is labeled as District 11, right? Or Area 11. So everybody in that area is called 11s. Hence why her shirt says 11. It's a deep cut reference if you've read the manga and if you've watched Code Geass. It's something you wouldn't pick up on first watch, nor would you know about if you didn't read the manga. It's a cute way of showing how the animators are fully aware of the manga and trying to pay respect to it, right? So like, despite all the cuts and all the problems and sometimes the misrepresentation of Kazuya's character, the animators clearly love this manga and clearly love and respect the source material. And this is something Reiji said recently. I guess this is a good place. This is as good a place as any to mention it. Crunchyroll actually made a mini documentary for the series, and if you guys would like me to get into it, I'll probably talk about it at a different time. But here, let me pull it up, and it's actually pretty good. It's really cool seeing the perspective from the animators and the people who worked on it. I found that really cool, and it was a cute watch. And in part of the watch, one of the things I really liked is how Reiji, people were listing like their favorite characters to watch, and of course, like the one of the editors was just like, it's Ruka, and I'm like, yeah, it would be Ruka, wouldn't it? Because you guys give her so much goddamn screen time. But one of my favorite things was when Reiji said it. Reiji said that his favorite character to watch, and he'd like to include him because, you know, they were only listing the female characters, is Kazuya. I'm like, yes, based, 2000% based. I love it, yes. Because again, Kazuya is actually my favorite character personally. I love Chizuru and Kazuya are like pretty much tied for first. And then I believe it's like Minnie, Mami, Sumi, Ruka. That's my list. Mami is in third. Yeah, Mami is in third place, motherfuckers. I like Mami that much. She's great. Screw you guys. You guys don't understand Mami. So maybe I'll make a video called that. You guys don't get Mami. But yeah, go check this out. It's a really cute watch. It really pays respect to the anime, and it shows that the animators actually give a shit. Oh yeah, and in particular, this seemed to be covering season 3. And another thing you can really tell in this one is how Kanohariyama, the character designer for the anime, is a very private person. She doesn't really like to be shown. The only thing you see is her hands, and they have someone lip syncing for her. She's not actually talking in the video. But anywho, that's one thing. There's actually another cute thing that I personally picked up when looking at this. I pointed out how like some stuff is like reversed, like for example with Minnie's clothes. With Sumi, Kana always draws her with the Lolita style. Lolita is a fashion style, and it's pretty much what Sumi wears. Sumi wears that style. It's very popular. Go look it up. You've probably heard of Gothic Lolita, right? So Gothic Lolita is, you know, this but goth. So Sumi is just drawn in that. It just makes sense. It's her style. I love how the bag is kind of old-fashioned. It seemingly fits Sumi's style too, perfectly matching the Lolita style, which is by nature fundamentally old-fashioned. Kind of modern too, in its own way. Now, you'll look at Ruka, Mami, and Chizuru. So for Chizuru, the clothes she wears don't really match the clothes she's wearing in the trip. However, there are some interesting similarities. So I'm gonna pull it up, slight spoilers for those who don't wanna see anything from it just yet, but this is the clothes Chizuru wears on the trip. And now you'll notice it's not quite the same, right? It's not quite the same as what she's wearing here. However, there are some interesting similarities. In particular, we know Chizuru's top is pink. This top is pink, this one is red. There's some similarities there, right? You can clearly see some level of similarities there, but it's not quite the same. So it's a cute kind of reversal of how she looks in the manga, where in the anime, the way it's dressed is seemingly more traditional, but somewhat free. The way Chizuru is dressed in the manga is very modern, but seemingly having that traditional element in there. So again, it's that reversal thing I was talking about. If you look at how Ruka's dressed, again, it's another slight spoiler. The way Ruka's dressed is actually quite similar to how she's dressed here. The difference is she's wearing a skirt, whereas here she is not. Here her colors are straight. Here there's a pattern on her clothing. For Mami, the phone is quite relevant here. I will say that. Mommy having her phone is quite relevant. You'll notice Mommy is the only one who's not expressive out of the characters here, and I do believe this is going to be a very important arc for Mommy's character. So I guess I'm spoiling it a little bit, but yeah, the phone is quite relevant here. Mommy is carrying even lighter bags than everyone here. You'll notice, like, I guess, yeah, actually, yeah, she has the lightest packaging here out of everyone, and she's actually wearing pants. In contrast to, she's wearing Ruka's pants. I just realized, right? She's straight up wearing Ruka's pants. That's funny. Yeah, so I guess her and Ruka have like a similar thing going on. So it's clear Kana took some inspiration from the way the characters were dressed on the trip. Again, the anime often presents all the female characters going on a trip together. I wish it would do a little bit more for Kazuya, but I get it. I get it. I get the anime industry, I know, but I wish they would just do a little more for Kazuya. He fucking deserves it, dude. Anywho's, there's one last thing I wanted to point out about this, and it's this. So, I mentioned the reversal thing. I was talking about that earlier. But one of the more interesting things is how Chizuru, when she goes on the trip, you'll notice she has this bag. She has this bag, right? And it's a very light bag. She came to the trip with really light luggage. In contrast, Kazuya and Ruka brought a suitcase on wheels. Now you'll notice in this, Chizuru has a suitcase on wheels, and Ruka has the light luggage. It's actually very similar to the one Chizuru has. So reversing the roles again. This is something the anime really, really loves to do. So for example, if a frame has a character pointing this direction, they'll change the direction that way. Like I mentioned with like the clothes, with Minnie's clothes, they'll do some sort of reversal to it. It's essentially, actually, yeah, this is the best way I can put it. The anime is meant to complement the manga, not to replace it. That's its fundamental design philosophy, is that it's meant to be a complementary thing to the manga. If you read the manga, you'll like the anime because it fundamentally works to complement it. It's meant to have like the things you enjoy animated. It's meant to have like some of the things that are done well animated, but they can't do everything, and they realize that, so their philosophy is not to replace the manga, but rather to just get you to read it, essentially. And that's nice. I love it that they're doing their own thing, but at the same time not trying to be better than it, not to replace the manga. And I think that's something that's very common these days with a lot of shows and stuff, where what tends to happen is they'll try to replace the show by like making it its own thing instead of just respecting the source material and treating it well. And this is something that actually Reiji talks about and is very grateful for, that he mentions in this video, in the mini documentary, where he talks about how he loves that the team seemingly respects the source material and isn't trying to change it or isn't trying to bring stuff onto it. In fact, they directly involve him quite a lot. And interesting notes, when I was watching certain scenes, like for example, when Kazi and Chizuru came back from the trip in season 3, they added an extra scene where Chizuru goes to the bathroom and she touches her cheek. That wasn't in the manga, and I felt it was a little weird, but it didn't feel out of character either. And I couldn't pin down whether I liked it or not. And then Reiji said, I wanted this scene added in. I personally requested they add this scene in. I'm like, okay. He said it himself. I mean, shut the fuck up. And I'm like, okay, that's actually really cool and thematically fitting for Chizuru's character. So there's cool details like that. I'm curious if season 4 will have stuff like that. Now, as to where season 4 part 1 is gonna stop, either a little bit into paradise or as they get to paradise. That's my guess. I feel like they would want to cover at least 30-ish chapters, which is a good amount for 12 episodes. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Covering 30-ish chapters, that's solid. That's a great amount to like add in there, right? So I feel like if they cover 30-ish chapters, they would be a little bit into paradise. So yeah, no, okay, dude. They are set. If they play their cards right, they are set. They pretty much got dealt a good hand here. They just need to play it well. That's pretty much where we're at. Now, I do want to get into some slight spoilers for manga readers. So the anime only is go to come back a little bit later. So okay, for this season, for those wondering like, oh, why do they have Sumi here? Why do they have Minnie here? Because they're not involved in this arc at all. First off, what they're covering, it's not directly into paradise. For like the first 30-ish chapters, Minnie is there. Minnie does kind of have an arc there. And she does kind of show up here and there in those chapters. So Minnie be on here, it makes sense, right? But she's not relevant in paradise. And most of this season is gonna be pretty much like build up to paradise and then into paradise. I guess I just called Hawaiians. Should I just call it Hawaiians? That makes way more sense, I feel like. And then Sumi's not here. Sumi pretty much gets the mommy role. But if you go back to earlier seasons, like they did the same thing. Mommy was literally nowhere in season 3, but she showed up like at the very, very end of it. right? But they still had her in the cover of the thing, right? They still had her in there, and she just had like little small cameos from like flashbacks and shit. Sumi is kind of in the same role in this arc for a while, actually. Like Sumi's just not gonna be there for a hot while, and she shows up in like snippets. So for example, when Kaze and Chizuru go on the date, Sumi gets a little cameo, and Reishi starts doing that quite a decent amount with Sumi, where whenever he's trying to explain something or show something, he'll have Sumi appear in like a mini cameo. So yeah, Sumi's gonna be there, but she's not there. And no, they're not gonna change the script for anyone wondering. No, they're not gonna change the script and fucking include Sumi or Minnie. That is extremely counterintuitive to the writing. You literally can't have them there. The whole point of the arc is not to have them there, right? The arc is not designed for these characters. It is not meant to have them there. It is an arc about confronting all the negative shit of the characters and still retaining who you are without like these characters around you, and those characters show up later to help them rebuild themselves, right? So it's literally them not being there is core to the narrative. They can't change that. Like if they change that, they fucked it up, right? I feel like they fucked it up if they change that. So it doesn't make sense. I don't feel like Sumi or Minnie's gonna be there. Don't worry, they're not gonna change that. I don't think so. I don't believe that for like 1 second. Spoiler people, you may come back now. So for season 4 part 2, I genuinely don't know when it's coming out. I don't. They could shoot for winter. Personally, I would prefer if they shot for the further the better. I would prefer if they shot for winter, personally speaking, because the more time you have, the better, right? Like, I'm sorry, like, I get that's rough for some people. We're probably gonna get some sort of fucking cliffhanger, and then we're gonna get into, we have to wait a little bit, but I prefer that because the more time they have, the better. Remember, the more time they have, the better quality you're going to get. So don't like get upset that we maybe won't be getting it when we want to, like right away. Like I know a lot of you would prefer just the straight 24 episodes as we get them, or like see back-to-back seasons. I don't think so. I think I would prefer if they shot for winter, right? I prefer if they shot for winter. And also just the whole point of COURS is to not do like 24 episodes straight. So if they just go straight for spring, it doesn't make any sense, right? So I think winter is a likely bet. Or if we're going fucking crazy bongo dongos, 2026. That I don't think so. I don't think so. I'll be real. I don't think 2026 is where we're going to be going. I think winter just makes sense. Winter season of anime just makes a lot more sense. It also matches the theme because Hawaiians literally takes place in winter. So it makes a lot more sense to have it take place in winter. So yeah, that's pretty much my guess. That's where I think the second part is going to be coming out. Now, the only thing left now is to see some sort of trailer. We're probably not going to get a trailer until April. That's pretty much my guess. April, March, maybe we might get something in February, but yeah, February makes sense actually. Romance, Valentine's, yeah. So February makes some sense. I could see us getting something in February, maybe something in April. For fans of just Reishi in general, by the way, like if you watch the Shiyunji family and then it ends, you'll get right into Rent a Girlfriend. You're set, bro. Dude, 2 seasons of Reishi Miyajime's work. Let's go, dude. We are set. We've been getting some really good stuff. I'm really happy with this announcement. Yeah, I think I've shared everything I wanted to say. I don't think there is really. Oh, yo, we get to see the art. Excuse me. We're gonna watch through these. Okay. Yeah, Sumi we can see clearly. Like we don't need to see any more of Sumi, right? We've seen her clearly. Ah, she's wearing boots. That's what's going. Oh, and she's carrying 2 things of food. I didn't even realize. And then Chizuru. Yeah, and of course the secret. That's oddly fitting considering an element of secret at play here. But yeah, no, this definitely looks a lot like Ruka's clothes, right? And then these. Yeah. Okay. Cool. I like that. I'm glad we made this detour. We got to see these images. Any more news we get, if we get a trailer, if we get something along those lines, I'll definitely talk about it. I'll definitely get into it and explore it and see what they're doing. Hopefully it's good. I'm crossing my fingers. Crossing my fingers. I want this season to be fucking good. I want it to be good. I want them to adapt it well. So here's hoping. Right? We'll have to see where it all goes. With that said, I've been Fade. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please subscribe, like button, hit the bell icon, keep up the uploads. Making videos consistently is quite difficult, so if you would like to, I would really appreciate it if you can support me on Patreon. Currently, I'm working on a few things to add on there. In particular, I'm going to start a weekly series, and 2, I'm gonna make a reaction videos watching through the anime. I'm gonna watch through the anime and I'm gonna make reaction videos to each individual individual episode. And that's going to be the thing I'll be introducing soon to Patreon, because I want to add more things for you guys, because yeah, I want to do more things for you guys. So yeah, I'm going to be adding stuff on there soon that I will be making and putting out. With that said, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys in the chapter 360 video for those who are waiting for the manga, because I am working on it, but this happened and I just needed to put this out first. Anywho, as I said, have fate, and remember, let's mosey.